Good evening, everyone. It is July 26, 2019. I'm Eric. I follow a guy, John Whitehead's publications and the stuff he does for people. And before I even knew about him, I held the beliefs that I express in these videos. But he is yet another person who, mostly in my opinion, sees the light of day, and he calls what he calls monsters with human faces, I just call monsters, human faces or not. The tyranny of police state disguised as law and order. You hear a lot of people talking about how we must have rule of law. And what does that mean exactly? Rule of law. It seems to me that no such thing exists for anybody except for street level people and individuals who are currently being thrown under the bus. Otherwise, there is no rule of law. So I'm going to hit some of the major points in his article here at shtfplan.com. However, it was first published over at, I want to make sure I get it right, the Rutherford Institute. He quoted another writer, or maybe it was a movie, I'm not sure, I've never heard of it, but I'm going to go ahead and hit some of that too. But these weren't the kind of monsters that had tentacles and rotting skin. They were monsters with human faces and crisp uniforms marching in lockstep. Sound familiar? You don't recognize them for what they are until it is too late. It's from Ransom Riggs, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I've never heard of that. It's probably a book, but that was the quote from it. But he goes on to say, enough is enough already. Enough with the distractions. Enough with partisan jousting. Enough with the snipping and name-calling and mudslinging to do nothing but make this country safer or more just. You have not done anything to make this country safer or more just. It's gotten more dangerous with every year I've been alive. As far back as I can remember, it's gotten more dangerous. And particular for children. So, we have let the government's evil doing, its abuses, power grabs, brutality, meanness, inhumanity, immorality, greed, corruption, debauchery, and tyranny go on for far, far too long. Far too long. It should have ended with Abraham Lincoln. And I'm not saying I think the South should have won. If it wasn't about, well, let me rephrase that. That war was not about freeing the slaves. It was about states' rights. The freeing of the slaves just gave Lincoln the high ground, moral high ground, supposedly. At that time, though, there were economic systems in play that were making slavery obsolete and not profitable anymore. So the South would have had to adapt or it would have collapsed. But I digress. He goes on to say that we are approaching a reckoning. And we are. We have seen this convergence before in Hitler's Germany, in Stalin's Russia, in Mussolini's Italy, Mao's China, the rise of strongmen and demagogues. And we have seen the very same thing happening now. And he goes on to say that no matter how many times the world has seen this, for some reason, we cannot stop making the same stupid mistakes that's been tried over and over and over again with just that, Hitler, Mussolini, these kinds of people doing their power grabs, killing lots of people. And for what? For what? And this, it's not just playing out on a national or international scale. It is wreaking havoc in the most immediate level, or at the most immediate level, rather, as well, creating rifts and polarities within families and friends, neighborhoods and communities. So, this, among a couple of other things, should be the focus of most people's attention. What the government is doing to us, what it's done to us, and how we can end that, what's being done to us. Among a lot of other stuff. I mean, this has gone on for a long time, and it's just gotten worse. We've had experimentation. We still have this stuff going on, and one of these days, one of their experiments is going to kill a lot of people. Then you have the police, or law enforcement in general, really, doing shit like planting evidence and molesting children, getting caught with child porn, raping homeless women, you name it. How are we supposed to trust any institution who has individuals like this among them? But we are in a desperate need of a population that can stand united against the government's authoritarian tendencies. And you can't argue that it hasn't gotten more and more authoritarian. Surely we can manage to find some common ground in the midst of the destructive, disrupting, diverting, and so on and so forth, babbling, being beamed down at us by the powers that be. Can't we find common ground? I mean, after all, we all have more in common with each other than any of them motherfuckers. Just saying. Whether you're black, white, Mexican, whatever, we still have more in common than what any of us have in common with those scumbags. We can disagree on issues, but at the end of the day, these issues really are meaningless if we really don't have say in our own futures, which we don't. So the issues are mute until we gain some kind of control back over our own political destiny, or whatever you want to, social, whatever you want to call it. Freedom. Actual freedom. Not this bullshit you learn in school. So, he's written another great article. I'll leave a link in the description box below, or maybe pin it in the first comment. All the imperial powers amassed by Barack Obama and George W. Bush were inherited by Donald Trump. These presidential powers, acquired through the use of executive orders, decrees, memorandums, proclamations, national security directives, and legislative signing statements, which can be activated by any sitting president. So, and we all remember the Patriot Act, the NDAA, among other stuff that's been passed and has really, really limited our so-called freedom. So, anyway, I thought I would share this with you because we are facing that monster, and it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger, and at some point, it's going to be too big to defeat. Is that what we want? Do we really want the president to have the powers that he has? Do we really want a bunch of morons there in Congress making law, and Senate making laws that we are bound to because they decree we do and they don't? Do we really want that? I would venture to say probably not. If you really broke yourself from the crowd that you belong to, whether it be Republican, Democrat, extreme left, extreme right, whatever it is, I bet if you broke yourself free from your particular little ideology for a little while, that you would recognize that you are supporting evil. And that's what this government is. It's evil. And anybody who cowers and is afraid and won't speak out, who won't stand up, they're going to see a judgment for their cowardice. They will. So, anyway, I hope everyone has a great evening, and until next time, kill the state, live free.